Hi. I've just been going through the original script for Switchblade Sisters, and it's a gem. I mean, it's like you could just flip it to any page and there's like a great piece of dialogue going on. Like this one. This is from the movie you're about to see. Everything was great before Maggie came around. It's Maggie, ain't it? She ruined it all. Everything was lousy. You were lousy. This whole gang was lousy. Just great. Okay, again, another one. Let's see. She's rotting you from the inside, Lace. The girls listen to her while you've been in the hospital. Nobody takes what's mine. If Maggie wants blood, she'll get plenty of it. And on and on and on and on and on. This is so far one of the funnest films that we've got releasing through the Rolling Thunder video collection. It's directed by Jack Hill, and Jack Hill's films have always just been, to me, just some of the funnest exploitation movies made all throughout the 70s. He was sort of like the Howard Hawks of exploitation, insofar as he always worked in different genres. You know. Now, let me give you a little clue as far as to watching this film is concerned. I watched this with audiences all over the place. And it starts off, and the film is very funny, and it's very high-pitched and hysterical. And I've watched it as audiences watch the film. Basically, at first, they're laughing kind of at the movie, because it's one of those kind of movies. But then, as it goes on, you kind of start realizing, no, this is genuinely funny. This dialogue is really good, and you start laughing with the movie. But then a very strange thing happens, and this is not the only Jack Hill film for this to happen. This happens in at least 3 of his other films. All of a sudden, you're watching towards the end of Switchblade Sisters, and all of a sudden, you realize you actually care about these people. Unbeknownst to you, this crazy, hysterical movie, you've actually gotten invested in the characters. And you actually feel for the characters of Lace and Maggie, the girls that run the Jezebels, the tough, all-girl gang that just kicks so much butt in this movie. Anyway, this is a blast. Sit back, enjoy, have fun. When the film's over, I'll be back and I'll be telling you a little bit more about Jack Hill, some more of his movies, some facts on some of the gals in the film, and just some general information, cool information that Jack Hill told me about this film. Anyway, enjoy Switchblade Sisters. Wasn't that film great? Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you that film was great? I didn't lie to you, did I? Now, let me tell you this little story about how this film came about. What had happened was, Jack Hill had pretty much made most of his movies for either Roger Corman at New World Pictures or Samuel Arkoff at AIP. He broke off from those guys and started his own company with his producer, John Prizer. And the company was called Centaur Releasing. And so the first film that they did, under this alliance, was a film called The Swinging Cheerleaders. And it was a smash. It did so well. It traveled through all the drive-ins of the South and in the North, and it was just a big hit. In fact, if you've ever seen The Thin Blue Line, you'll remember in that documentary, the drifter says at the time that the murder was happening, he was in a drive-in watching a cheerleader movie. Well, The Swinging Cheerleaders is the movie in that movie that he's watching. And if you've seen The Thin Blue Line, you'll see scenes from the Swinging Cheerleaders playing on the drive-in screen. Now, that was such a hit that they decided to get together and do another film right afterwards. And the distributors were happy to, have them do another film because Swinging Cheerleaders was so successful. That film was a film called The Jezebels, which obviously Switchblade Sisters. All right, the whole film was called The Jezebels. That's how this title it was shot under. That's what they did it. Anyway, the way they used to release exploitation movies back then is they would take them from town to town to town. Kind of schlep them around, spend a little bit of money in this market, take them to St. Louis, spend a little bit of money in this market, take them to Baltimore, spend a little money in that market. Anyway, they open up The Jezebels. All right, and it does horrible business. Nobody goes and sees it. And the theater owners all say, well, it was because of the title. The Jezebels, what's that? People thought it was a Betty Davis movie, You gotta have something harder, you gotta come up with something harder. So they come up with the title, Switchblade Sisters. Okay, so now they're gonna release it under Switchblade Sisters. However, they have one more engagement that they have to do under the Jezebels. So they change everything to Switchblade Sisters except for this one engagement. They open up the film in this other engagement, and the film does great under the title The Jezebels. The film does just absolutely fantastic. All right, so now, okay, forget about that. Now they got to release it under the title Switchblade Sisters, and the film does bad everywhere it plays. All right, it doesn't do well at all. Opens and closes, and that's pretty much the end of that. Personally, I have to say, while Jezebel's is a little bit more organic, organically organic to the story, I actually like the title Switchblade Sisters better. I think it still describes the movie wonderfully. It makes no mistake about the kind of movie it is. Now, Switchblade Sisters is an exploitation film. Let me kind of just explain to some degree what exploitation cinema is, or at least what it was in the 60s and 70s. Why they called it exploitation was because there were films that basically didn't have big stars or big production values. What they were, they had elements in there that you could exploit, either sex, violence, action, things like that. That makes a snazzy movie poster. And inside of exploitation films in the 60s and 70s, there were many different genres. There was, the biker films. There were kung fu films, blaxploitation films, spaghetti westerns, good old boy car chase movies, women in prison films. Well, Jack Hill was sort of the Howard Hawks of this type of exploitation director. All right, he worked in pretty much every, most of the genres going. All right, he did horror films, he did women in prison films, he did blaxploitation movies. He is the man who discovered Pam Grier. He's Joseph von Sternberg to Pam Grier's Dietrich, that's for sure. He did cheerleader movies. He even did a sword and sorcery movie. And this was his girl gang movie, but it also had a little bit of women prison in there. It had a lot of different types of films, in Switchblade Sisters. To me, Switchblade Sisters is his masterpiece. And one of the things that makes Jack Hill so exciting, and what makes a lot of these exploitation filmmakers exciting, was they were coming at film with a commitment to movies. And basically, when you'd make a deal with somebody like a Roger Corman or whatever, is you can make the film you want to make as long as you deliver it inside of a stock car racing movie, or as long as you do it inside of a blaxploitation movie. Well, I want to make the Battle of Algiers. Okay, set it in Watts and make it about a bunch of black revolutionaries. All right, but if you do that, you can do whatever movie you want to make. Jack Hill would take these, assignments that he was given, and he was never looking forward to do these movies. He just took the next assignment coming on. But then by the way he wrote them and the way, he worked in with this, all of his films have the same kind of comic rhythm that Switchblade Sisters has. He built something meaningful out of it. And yeah, they're fun, and yeah, you're hooting and hollering and you're having a good time, but as the movies go on, you realize, the fun is not random. It's not just a mistake. No, it's building on. The film has rhythm. You're building on the jokes, and there's a very interesting dialogue rhythm going on in Switchblade Sisters, where it's normally dialogue is built to a rhythm of pitch. That's the way my dialogue usually is. It's da 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 ba. All right. He's building a musical beat with the dialogue, and then undercuts it, all right, by throwing more or less a word that is the equivalent of a bad note at the end of the crescendo. So it's on the beat, off the beat, constantly. That's why one of the reasons why this movie, the dialogue sounds so strange, because it seems to be building up a rhythm and then purposely, backs it up. Now, another interesting thing about the way Jack Hill conceived this movie is Jack Hill was always taking Jack Hill is a Shakespeare aficionado, and he was always using Shakespeare as the basis for his movies. All right, at the end of Coffee, when the main bad guy is trying to convince Coffee to come back to him, that's Richard III. That's the last scene in Richard III. All right, Switchblade Sisters is Othello. It's set up straightforward. It's Othello, and Patch. All right, Monica Gale in the film is basically, without a doubt, playing Iago. And not only is she playing Iago, she's playing Iago great. As far as I'm concerned, she's one of the best Iagos in film history. She does a great job with the film. And it's and so the whole film has this kind of Othello structure to it. Jack Hill, some of the other films you can get if you like his stuff, The Big Birdcage, The Big Dollhouse, both starring Pam Grier, all right. Then the two big Pam Grier vehicles, Foxy Brown and Coffee being the best. But recently they just came out with the Foxy Brown soundtrack by Willie Hutch on CDs. Got to get that one. It's a great soundtrack. All right, as well as Pit Stop is a stock car racing movie. Spider Baby, probably his strangest movie that he's ever done, starring Lon Chaney Jr. and the Swinging Cheerleaders. All right, if you like this film, you see the film that led up to it, the Swinging Cheerleaders. Anyway, that's it for this edition of Rolling Thunder Video. The next film we'll be coming your way with is Jet Li in Fist of Legend. Until then, see you then.